And my office for the county for disaster services was in the federal building on Fifth Avenue, which was a county library. And underneath the library, 3 stories below the ground, was a EOC, Emergency Operating Center. It was very large. In the event of a disaster, and previously, if it was a nuclear disaster, they had what they called a hardened site, which we would be able to put 250 people in there, survive for 2 weeks, protecting them from radiation with sufficient water and food, all stored underneath this facility. And my main office was there, and my official title was Assistant Coordinator of the Department of Communication and Disaster Services. So doing all this for several years, one day there was a colonel coming from the base. I can't remember the name of the base there in San Bernardino now. And it was around lunchtime, so I had a staff of 8 people, but they were all out to lunch. So this particular day, he wanted some drugs from the PDR, Package Disaster Hospital. Well, it was stored across the street in the coroner's garage. So we went across the street to get these drugs. So I climbed up where the drug case was and to pull it out. Well, unfortunately, it was stuck. And then when it let go, I and the drug case went flying down. And thank goodness the coroner's office was just taking an inventory, and they had cardboard boxes all over the floor. My body embedded itself into one of these large boxes. Consequently, I had to go to the hospital because I was coughing some blood. I did not want to go to the county hospital. In those days, that was a high-risk situation. But I had also been advising all the hospitals in the county of San Bernardino. So there was a new hospital between Redlands and Loma Linda called Loma Linda Community Hospital, brand new. And I knew the staff there, so I decided to go visit one of my friend physicians there and told him what happened. So they x-rayed me, and we went into surgery, cracked my chest open, and went in and repaired all the damage. And I spent 3 weeks in intensive care, and I notified my mother when she come to see me that I would probably not be able to converse with her too much, but if she wanted to know how I was, to get a hold of my big toe and to squeeze it, and if I was okay, I'd wiggle the toe, which I did. And that was our communication system. But anyway, I was there for 3.5 weeks in the intensive care and recovered. And went back to the county and found that my job was no longer available. That Don had decided that being I injured myself on the job, that I was a detriment to the county of San Bernardino. So I am now unemployed, and I filed unemployment personal injury and filed that with an attorney. Now we're talking another year, and we finally had a hearing in front of the San Bernardino County Civil Service Commission. And this went on for several weeks with cross-examination. And Don had told the medical officer, which I had papers that cleared me to go back to work, to deny that. And that's where the problem was. So anyway, as cross-examination was going on through this, eventually we got the medical officer on the stand, and he was asked specifically why he was blocking this. And he threw his hands up. He said, "I'm taking the fifth." And they all laughed because this is not a federal court. This is the county of San Bernardino. You don't have to take the fifth for immunity. So that there broke the case, and it identified where the problem was and why the problem existed. So they voted for me to retain my job back. So I was happy with that, and I was able to return to my office and found out that my office had been removed. I am now been removed to one small office with no windows, and this went on for 3 months, and he took my emergency vehicles away from me. I had nothing to do but sit in this office, and he would pile paperwork for me to do for 3 months. And so this was sort of a psychological game that he was playing. And he was a retired major from the Air Force, and I was not one of his, he was commander and chief, and I was not abiding by those specific requests as he was making. So after 3 months, I said to myself, why am I allowing this psychological, physiological punishment? He's not going to change because I tried that. So I walked into his office with my briefcase and said, I am going to resign. And he said, you can't resign. And I said, bye. Got up, walked up, got the elevator, and went out. That's the last I'd been in there. And so then we had our home. So now I am unemployed, so I decided to temporarily go down to the county of San Bernardino Cemetery, and they were hiring. So temporarily I was trained for several weeks relative to sales of cemetery lots and cremation and various things like that. So I did that for 2 or 3 months so that we could have finances to pay our rent and have groceries. And then there was an advertisement in the newspaper that they were looking for a professional doctor in Hermosa Beach to fill a position. So I scattered my little self over to Hermosa Beach, was interviewed as they interviewed other people, and I was hired to be a professional doctor, DC, on the staff of this clinic at Hermosa Beach. And so I moved my family again, my mother and my kids and the dog, and we got community involved again. I was involved with Kiwanis again, very active, and the practice was building continually. We are in Hermosa Beach, and we have been there for about a year. Everything is working very nicely, and I took my children down on the boardwalk on the harbor there, and as we were walking on the boardwalk, Elizabeth was small, and she fell off the side into the water and went underneath. And then as she bobbed back up, I grabbed her and pulled her out. And so that was a memorable and exciting time. And then we, off of this little harbor, out in the bay was a large ship. And people would take for $1 and get on this boat and go out to the ship to go fishing. So my mother and I would do that at least once a week, just go out to the boat, stay on the boat, and come back. So for $1, we got a round trip, and it was very enjoyable. And a lot of people on the beach. It was a very nice. Hermosa is a nice little town. People live on the beach, very expensive, and so we did nicely. As I continued with Kiwanis. Then I was asked to be the incoming charter president of a new Kiwanis club at Manhattan Beach, which took place. And in those days, it was a formal event where you would have on a tux, and the district governor and the lieutenant governor would arrive, and your friends and your family, and it was quite a deal. And we met at a restaurant called, I think it was called the Penny Restaurant. And, oh yeah, that's right. In Hermosa Beach, we had IHOP, which then was known as International House of Pancakes. And my kids just loved those dollar-sized pancakes. And I did too. So we had a very enjoyable every Sunday morning after going to church. As time went on, I was involved with a lot of community leaders, the manager of the city of Hermosa, a couple of attorneys, and found out that doctors that I was working for had a shady past and that they were involved in counterfeiting. And I thought, whoa, I don't need to have the feds run all over me relative to any counterfeit money. So I quietly watched what I was doing, and right next door was the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and so I had some friends there, so we were able to make good communication with proper officials. And so I resigned my position there, went around the corner, found a small office in this dental complex. There was a dentist, and he had a vacant office, and so I rented that and continued my practice there. And we did that for another 6 months to a year, and Kathleen, my eldest daughter, was running the office on the front end, and it was very nice and very successful. We then decided to go back to Apple Valley, California, and I had an opportunity to sell my little practice, which I did. And so we eventually, with my mom and the 4 kids and the dog, went back to Apple Valley, California.